because there was a segment of folks that are saying that, hey, maybe Deshaun Watson could be going to the Carolina Panthers. Wait, what? I've even got it in my notes where it's like, yeah, Watson could end up with the Carolina Panthers, according to one ESPN analyst. And we'll get into that, okay? We'll get into that in a moment. But then I get stunned with, I say stunned, but news that just came out that Will Muschamp is now apparently working for Georgia. Yes, this guy has gone from here to go and possibly end up working for the Georgia Bulldog program. So the news comes at us fast around here, but we do the best we can to keep up. But of course, Muschamp left South Carolina, or, was basically shown the door at South Carolina. And now it may end up being that he's possibly going home. If you go to the blog page at foxsportsradio1400.com, you'll see the full write-up that's there. And a lot of it comes from the report from the gentleman from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, where it looks like Muschamp will end up working in some capacity for the Georgia Bulldogs. Now, I don't know how that works for his contract buyout and everything else for South Carolina. I know sometimes it's like there's a set amount of things that you have to have as far as, making certain money, et cetera. And I don't read the contracts, but according to this report, he's been spotted entering Georgia's football complex on a daily basis this week, and even appears to have a parking spot. And Nectarios online watching already has it probably figured out. Maybe he's going to be a DB coach, which that could be, something that he's done before. Of course, what other role could he have? Secondary coach Charlton Warren left the Bulldogs to become the new defensive coordinator at Indiana this week. But you know what? Kirby Smart may be going the Alabama route. What I mean by that is have Will Muschamp and other coaches there as an analyst, sort of like Butch Jones. And you could even use Steve Sarkisian. I think Sarkisian, who ended up being the coach at Texas, was an analyst for Alabama. Maybe that's the route that this is going. Still very interesting how all of this comes together and how that's going to work. He's probably going to end up being an analyst for the Georgia Bulldogs. But that's an interesting thing too, because a lot of it can tie back to he knows and had to game plan a lot for Clemson. So maybe he'll use that as a nugget to help the Bulldogs out in their first game of the season, you would think. Either way, Will Muschamp was not long without a job at some point, as he is now, according to reports from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, is now working for the Georgia Bulldogs. You can respond to that at 803-978-1832. It's amazing how these coaches, man, can move from one spot to another. We've talked about that in the past. Crazy. If you'd have told me that this morning, I probably would have been like, okay. Now, there's one other thing, too, that could be in the mix here. His son, Jackson Muschamp, is also at Georgia. So maybe it could have a little something to do with that. You never know. But the report says he's got his own parking spot, so I think that pretty much means that's where he's going to be. All right, we'll take calls on that at 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. That is the number to call to join us here on the Rundown this afternoon. The big story there, Will Muschamp, I guess, moving on from, obviously he was moving on anyway from South Carolina, but now it looks like he'll be staying somewhat close in an SEC East program as he will go and work for the Georgia Bulldogs. All right, we got other stuff we're going to get into today, including I've got a clip here that I want to play you about Deshaun Watson possibly coming to the Panthers. Now, I know that's if you're a Panthers fan, you look at that and you're like, man, that would be crazy. And there's a lot of thoughts and stuff about what could actually happen and where he could end up. It's almost like a Days of Our Lives segment. It's pretty much what it boils down to. Is he going to go here? Is he going to go there? You never really know. But the reality is that he's probably not going to play anymore for Houston. But if he's not, then where's he going to end up? The big names have been New York and Miami because they have the trade capabilities. Yesterday we talked about what exactly is Deshaun Watson worth. And there was Jeremy Fowler on ESPN this morning was talking about what exactly you needed to get Deshaun Watson. Here are his comments. Check this out. What exactly you need to get this guy from the Houston Texans.
The floor would be 3 first-round picks at a minimum, and people I've talked to around the league are unanimous on this. And not only 3 first-round picks, but a high pick, which is why the New York Jets and Miami Dolphins get implicated so often because they have the 2nd and 3rd pick in this draft, which the Texans could use to get their franchise quarterback and probably take some other pieces too. If you're thinking young, ascending players on rookie contracts with other teams, the Texans could look to acquire a emerging veteran with those 3 picks.
Yeah. So there's that. Now, here's the thing, though. Could he end up going to the Carolina Panthers? And this could be kind of a franchise-changing pickup for the Panthers, not just on the field. Deshaun Watson is loved throughout the Carolina area and, of course, Georgia, with a lot of fans that remember him there from high school, etc. When Jerry Richardson, bought or put together the team, his idea was that it would be for both South Carolina and North Carolina. But generally, fans are like, yeah, they're the Charlotte Panthers. Shut your mouth. So they've built the big facility that's up there in Rock Hill, or they're going to have that built. But getting Deshaun Watson to go there could be one of the things they give to the fans that says, all right, look, we're going to give you one of your guys that are here, that made his stardom here, and hopefully build off of that. So I was trying to figure out what you'd have to trade to get Deshaun Watson from the Panthers. Would you give up Christian McCaffrey, the number 8 pick this year, and the 2022 pick next year, the first-round pick for next year? That's something to think about. That really, really is. Because you're giving up basically your franchise player. But let's be honest, is that a guy that when you look at him, you think, okay, he's going to be here for a long, long time, and he's going to make a lot of damage do a lot of damage on the offensive side of the ball. And that's great, but the reality is that he's also had some injuries. He may have 2 more years where he may be at the top of where he is. Okay? Justin Online says he hopes that he comes to the Panthers. Yeah, that could be great. But I want to tell you why he is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. And it comes down to this. Deshaun Watson, with this stat, he led the league in yards per pass attempt this year at 8.9, I think is the term that the number that we've got here. So I'm going to make sure I give you the exact stat. But he led the league with 8.9 yards per pass attempt. So basically, he's close to the highest the league has seen from a quarterback since 2016. Now, the most impressive aspect of his game, though, is that he's very accurate at a high depth of target on most of the throws, ranking 3rd in completion percentage at 70.2 and tied for 4th in average depth of target at 9.4. According to Next Gen Stats, he had a completion percentage over of plus 4.8, which was the best in the NFL. Now, I know you're going to look at me and say, well, how did that team end up at 4-12, Rob? How is it that this team, he had all of these great numbers, but they ended up at 4-12? Well, a lot of it was they lost a lot of close games, and they had a very tough schedule. They played the Chiefs, Ravens, Steelers, Packers, Browns, Bears, Colts twice, and the Titans twice. All of those teams are playoff teams. So Deshaun Watson, in my opinion, is worth it, and I would give up Christian McCaffrey simply because of his injury issues. 803-978-1832. 803-978-1832. We'll take calls on that. And Will Muschamp heading to Georgia. Out to the phones we go. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Rundown.
Good afternoon, Rob. It's Ray. How are you doing?
Hey, Ray. What's up, buddy?
Oh, well, just want to talk about a few things. With Muschamp, I guess, becoming a coach at Georgia, we can kind of close a chapter on him. I know we closed a chapter on him when he lost a job and then when we hired Beamer. But I feel like in the fact that that Hilinski, got on with, I guess that's the right term, went through the portal, and now he's going to be a Northwestern Wildcat.
That was next on my list of stuff to talk about today.
Okay.
You're right, though. But go ahead, man. That's great.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay, great.
Rob. Yeah, Hilinski's heading to the Northwestern Wildcats, where he'll play in the Big Ten. And, I think there's a lot of Gamecock fans that feel the way that I do about this. I don't know if he actually meshed well with Mike Bobo. And I think that the relationship that he had, it was just one of those things where I don't think he was ever going to be Bobo's guy. And he's sitting there and he's looking at it, and he had to make a decision. Hey, they're going to keep Mike Bobo. I'm not going to sit on the bench. Why not? Why not transfer? So, yeah.
Yeah, well, Rob, I agree with you 100% on that. I don't think there was a good mesh there. There wasn't good chemistry for sure.
Right.
But there's a part of me that just thinks that Hilinski, and I wish the kid nothing but the best. With Muschamp, I just say good riddance. But with Hilinski, I wish the kid and his family nothing but the very best. But I think somehow he was part of Muschamp's collateral damage, and that's where I feel bad for that kid. I think.
What do you mean by that? You think it was more along the lines of?
I mean it and this is what I mean it. I mean it in a way that, like, I like the kid and his family, but I think Muschamp probably promised this kid the world to get him to come here, and I guess you can do that legally in recruiting. And I'm not sure if the kid was quite ready to come here. But where I really feel bad for the kid was he was put in as a freshman, and there's no doubt in my mind the majority of that season he was injured, but there was nobody else we could put in as a quarterback. And a Florida buddy of mine told me, Rob, that I remember Florida came here when Muschamp was the coach there. God, I can't remember which year it was, but they came in and they didn't have a quarterback.
Right.
They had a running back playing the shotgun, taking the direct snap. And I asked him, I said, what did y'all do that? He said that Muschamp went through 5 quarterbacks that year. He had nobody else to put there, and that was the only thing he could do. And where I feel bad for Hilinski, we didn't have another quarterback to put there, and I don't think Muschamp wanted to go back through that again just for the plain optics of the image that he's done went through 4 or 5 more quarterbacks and all got hurt. And so he had Hilinski had this kid playing quarterback when he was clearly injured, Rob. There's no doubt in my mind. And if you remember that Clemson game, which really wasn't much of a game, where Hilinski was a quarterback and he was hobbling, and not only was he hobbling during the game, if you remember, every play they had the kid run to the sideline to get the play because they wanted as much as the clock. Just let him stay in the huddle, snap the ball.
Right.
But what I mean by that's what I mean, and I say collateral damage. I don't mean any bad thing for the kid. I think it's just going to be another long line of quarterbacks that Muschamp has just totally messed up.
Yeah, and you can put a lot of that on Muschamp, and I'm willing to bet that now that he's at Georgia, the mentality is going to be stay the hell out of the offense rooms. Basically, you're going to coach defensive backs, and that's it. And I think that's what's going to be great for Muschamp. He may end up being a defensive coordinator somewhere and doing some great stuff, but when it comes to offense, he is just flat.
Yeah, and Rob, one last thing I wanted to say about this.
Sure.
What I think would be ironic if poetic justice, if somehow say Bentley gets his game going really good at South Alabama, gets to the NFL, and Hilinski goes and has a whirlwind great career at Northwestern and gets in the NFL. And that would just be the story of Muschamp and quarterbacks. I really think. I mean, it's kind of ironic, but I'd like to see that happen. But thanks a lot, Ross.
All right, man. Appreciate it. You know, you can look back at the quarterbacks that he had at Florida that all ended up either transferring or going somewhere else, etc. The names escape me, but I know the young man that played at West Virginia that was really good. I think he's a backup now to the Panthers. The kid that went, I think he ended up at NC State, but then ended up playing for the Colts. I mean, you know, transfer quarterbacks were just huge under the Will Muschamp regime wherever he went. And I think it was, you know, when you really stop and think about it, Muschamp, if you remember, all the kids loved him. You remember seeing like the games after the Florida game where guys that he played against or recruited, they loved him. So maybe he had that aspect where he could lead. He just didn't know what the offensive side of the football was. And the way that games are now, it's not even, I know that defense is important and you know, that is an important part of the game. But if you don't have a good offense, you might as well just throw it out the window. And I know things creep down from the pros down into the college ranks. Everything in the pros right now is pretty much built on offense. Look at the 4 teams that are left in the NFL playoffs. I'm a Green Bay Packers fan. They don't play special teams. They are terrible on special teams, and they give up yards on the ground. The Buffalo Bills can't stop the run. The Tampa Bay Bucks have issues in their secondary. And it is Will Greer. Thank you, Justin, online for helping me out there, because sometimes I'm stupid. I admit that. But there's flaws with all these NFL teams on the defensive side of the ball, but all 4 of them play really good offense. And that's the kind of thing that's going to taper down. Look at Alabama this year. They weren't the best Alabama defense ever. They weren't. I think Nick Saban would tell you that. But, man, they could score a lot of points. They could walk out there and probably write a number out there. Hey, we're going to score 42 this week, and they could do it pretty much against anybody. That's the way that football is going right now. The idea of defense is out the window. It really is. All right, we're going to take a quick break. I don't want to get behind. When we come back, we'll finish up the stuff on Deshaun Watson, and I've got some other stuff that we'll get into today. You are listening to The Rundown. This is Fox Sports Radio 1400. I'm going to get some water. Hey, Justin, thank you for that, because I lose track, man. I write all these great notes with all this stuff and then end up being dumb on the air. Anyway, I'm going to get some water. Thank you guys so much. Man, that's a lot to give up for Whit Levin there. 2 firsts, Teddy Bridgewater and Robbie Anderson. You'd have nothing for Deshaun Watson to throw to. I guess if you keep McCaffrey, that would make sense. If you keep McCaffrey, that would make sense. Welcome back to the Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeartRadio app. Top story of the day, Will Muschamp apparently is working now for the Georgia Bulldogs. You know, that's going to be interesting, to say the least. So we'll see how that works out. And does that affect his ability to, with his buyout, et cetera? We'll have to see how that works. So if you want to call and respond on that, if you're a Georgia fan, do you like the idea of him working with that Georgia defense? Oof. I don't know, man. After his 2 stops, I think it's best for him to be a defensive coach of some sort, but I don't know. All right, so the other thing today is if you're a Carolina Panthers fan, would you trade Christian McCaffrey, the number 8 pick this year, and your 2022 first-round pick? Jeremy Fowler from ESPN says that there's a chance that the Panthers could be a dark horse to bring Deshaun Watson to Charlotte.
But the Chicago Bears, I know there are people in that building that are very high on Deshaun Watson. Even though they passed on him in 2017, GM Ryan Pace could maybe get a mulligan. They've never had a 4,000-yard passer there. They could finally change that. Carolina Panthers, I'm hearing, would gauge interest if he was indeed on the market. This is a team that wasn't completely sold on Teddy Bridgewater. They've sort of made that clear in the open. They have some cap space to do it. They could make it happen. Washington football team is another that's mentioned often as going to be busy this offseason trying to get their future quarterback. They believe their window is now.
So there you go. And I would be stunned if Deshaun Watson ends up back in Houston. He's going to end up going somewhere. Just saying. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. Put a wrap on the South Carolina basketball game last night. You know, if you watch the game against Mizzou, the Gamecock basketball team just looked, they just seemed out of rhythm. There were sets where you could see, especially towards the end of the game, where they are missing, layups. Putbacks that, you would think a college player could make, and they have the talent to make that. And I don't know if it's concentration or what, but I think this South Carolina team has the potential to be really good, but man, they have, I think the whole not being able to play as much due to COVID-19 has really affected the Gamecocks. There are some teams that have played, I think Clemson's played, as an example, 11 games? South Carolina, I think, has played 7, something like that. It just seems like they're just not completely into a full, what you should be, full regular season mode right now. So there's that. If you want to call up and talk about the South Carolina basketball team, and do you think there's hope they can make the NCAA tournament? Or is it just, let's limp to the finish because, wow, COVID-19 has taken a beat down on everyone. So we'll take calls on that too at 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. That is the number to call if you'd like to join us here on the Rundown this afternoon. By the way, shout out to everyone on Twitter posting pictures of their McDonald's bags saying, okay, I've signed with Tennessee. That, my friends, is viral stuff that just makes me laugh really hard. I bet I've seen 15 to 20 of those on Twitter where people are just holding up their McDonald's bags saying, got my money from Tennessee. So we're going to talk a little bit when we come back. I've got one more segment with some football stuff in it for you, and it's teams that in the SEC that I think are going to be on the decline next season that are not the Tennessee Vols, because they are going to be just a gong show for a long time. They're going to be on the – I'm serious about Vanderbilt being their biggest game of the year. Seriously. Can they beat Vanderbilt? That's where the Tennessee program is going to be, I think, for the next 2 years after everything that we've heard. 51 violations, I think, is what I read on the 247 sports site. Also, we'll look at some stuff here on the big names in the transfer portal, and could they possibly be heading to South Carolina? We'll talk about that and a lot more here on The Rundown. You're listening to Fox Sports Radio 1400. Yeah, Samuel would be great. Would you go to more Panthers games if Watson were there? I mean, that's kind of the big thing. It's going to be interesting to see how that works for the Panthers if they're able to pull off that trade. I don't even know if he wants to go there. Maybe that's cool so he can be closer to his family. I don't know. It was funny he's wearing that Falcons jacket the other day. I thought that was kind of interesting in its own right. Wearing a Falcons jacket. Wow. I guess some people can get away with just about anything. Hey, that's a good point, man. I mean, no one wants to watch a loser anyway, unless you're the Saints. They're perennially a losing franchise. But man, the Saints fans are loud about it. Oof. Welcome back to the Rundown. Later on, we're going to talk about a game from last night that shows the flaws of the poll rankings and how everyone is thinking this game is has this team, the team that won last night. Oh, they're definitely a team that's going to make the Elite Eight. I love stuff like that. Before we get into that, though, I wanted to wrap up my football talk today with a couple of little things here. The transfer portal, by the way, this is one of the more interesting things here that some of the big names in the transfer portal, and could they make their way here to Columbia? And I know some of it's like a big time, all right, what are their ties here? But will this coaching staff be able to convince them to come here? Look, you've got the other thing, too, of when you stop and think about it, South Carolina is still an SEC school. So you have you can use that as a recruiting tool of, hey, we're in the SEC. You're definitely going to have a lot of eyes that will be able to watch you, etc. So maybe that's something that Shane Beamer and the coaching staff can put into the mix there. But I looked up some of the great or some of the big names that are still in the transfer portal. And there are some interesting names, to say the least. Some of the names include Jason Brown, the quarterback from St. Francis. So he claims a number of offers already, including from South Carolina, and he's drawn interest from Auburn. So think about that. You know, he played at St. Francis last year, which is a lower level school, but he's got offers theoretically from 2 SEC teams, one of them being South Carolina. So the key to Shane Beamer this season, having a good season, and in my opinion, getting the fan base on board quick, they've won huge with the press conferences and everything else that they've had so far. The videos they're putting on Twitter where they've got their strength and conditioning coach saying great stuff about the program. Man, they've hit home runs. A heck of a lot better than anything that came through with the Will Muschamp era as far as on the perception of what the program is. But it does come down to wins or losses, and right now they don't have enough Joes. Okay? Is basically what it boils down to. Terrence Oglesby, friend of the program, calls them dudes on the basketball court. South Carolina leads a lot of more dudes on the football team. One of them could be Jason Brown, the quarterback from St. Mathis. Another name is James Blackman from Florida State. This guy is great. I think he's 6'5", 6'6", something like that. He's a big, tall kid, but he weighs, and I'm not joking, 165 pounds. I guess he forgets to eat at the training table or whatever it is, or he has a tapeworm. But either way, he's pretty much the only proven Power 5 starter that's in the mix, in my opinion. At running back, you got Zach Charbonnet from Michigan. I think he's going to stay up in that area of the country as far as the Midwest. Keontae Ingram from Texas is probably going to go. He'll have several different spots. I mean, he averaged 5.9 yards a carry, sharing. He had to share a lot of touches. So I think he just transferred, obviously, to get more of those, and he's going to end up somewhere big. Another name in the list here is Eric Gilbert, big 5-star tight end, where everybody thought this guy's going to be the next Kyle Pitts. This is going to be that kind of guy. And he's big, huge player, man. He's able to make the moves, make the blocks, etc. Wide receiver skills, and he weighs 250 pounds. That's where this guy is. I think it comes down to 2 spots for him. I think it comes down to Georgia or Clemson. He'll be playing, in my opinion, in Charlotte the first game of the season next year with one of those teams. I think that's where he's going to end up somewhere as far as either Georgia or Clemson, in my opinion. I could be wrong. Other names that are out there that could make some sense include E.J. Jenkins. He's from St. Francis, and according to several reports, he is one of the players that the Gamecocks are looking at. Now, this is another spot that South Carolina could use some help, and that's on the offensive line. T.J. Filiola from Louisiana Monroe was an all-Sun Belt selection. Bringing him in, he's got 3 years under his belt. Makes a lot of sense. Also, a couple of other guys include T.J. Stormont, the offensive tackle from TCU. On the defensive line, you can always use more defensive linemen. Andrew Leota from Northwestern may end up being, he's already in the portal. He may be a guy that would come to play in the SEC. Linebacker's been an area of concern for South Carolina for a while. The big names, I don't know if they can get into the mix. Jack Lamb from Notre Dame is a California guy. He's probably going to end up being in California. And you got Rashi Hodge from New Mexico State. there's lots of Power 5 programs that are jumping into the mix there. And Raynard Ellis from Georgia Southern is another guy that may look to make the jump to the Power 5 as far as maybe he wants to have an opportunity to play at a bigger school. Defensive back Trey Rucker from Wake Forest finished his freshman season with 65 tackles. So that's a guy I think that's going to get a lot of offers and will have an opportunity to make his mark quick. And over the next couple of days, these guys are going to have to get after it because of the simple fact that they got to get in class. We're running out of time. So look for the transfer portal to start closing up here shortly. Of course, the big thing with that was Ryan Hilinski announcing last night, hey, he's going to the Northwestern Wildcats. Allen says, Gamecocks are currently ranked 88th in the country. They need help in every position. Yeah, they do. And Witt says, Jordan Mosley is a wide receiver decommit from 247. He's projected to South Carolina now. Yes, he did not make my list, but that is one that is definitely something that could help South Carolina. Former Gamecock Tim Frisbee, the wide receiver who joins us on the show, was, he said the two biggest areas the Gamecocks really need help they need help at wide receiver, and obviously the secondary's got to be completely rebuilt, and linebackers. Those three spots, but the wide receiving core as a whole, he said, is a real problem right now for South Carolina. So if they could get Mosley coming from Tennessee, and you got to think too, how many more of these guys are going to transfer out of Tennessee? They're going to take their bag, their McDonald's bag with the Big Mac wrapper in it, and head on out. That could be happening. Tennessee, the talent that they have could be leaving the program quickly. So we'll see how that shakes out. All right, when we come back, I've got some basketball notes for you. We'll talk about a game tonight and a game from last night that you look at and people are calling this team that won last night potentially a Sweet 16 Elite 8 team. I don't know if they'll make it out of the first round. And I'll give you the stats on why when we come back. Of course, you can always join the show at 803-978 or 1-832-803-978, 1-832. That is the number to call to join us here on The Rundown. You're listening to Fox Sports Radio 1400. Hey, I appreciate that, Whit. I missed that one. He's a big player, too, if I remember right. And I got to look him up. He's a big, tall kid, if I remember correctly. Very, very cool. All right. I thought he was taller than that. 6 foot 190. So he's kind of a burner, I guess. They can use help just about anywhere, though. I mean, oof. That's still see how that works out for him, man. I think that there's going to be a ton of guys from Tennessee that are going to leave now. I really do. Welcome back to the Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeartRadio app. My name is Rob Sanders. Thanks so much for checking us out today. We've talked a lot of football stuff today, including Will Muschamp apparently is now working at Georgia, if you want to get into that. We've also got into the South Carolina basketball team a little bit as they lost last night at Mizzou. I think they're 3-4 now, something like that. Yeah, kind of crazy. All right, so then we've got a game from last night that I wanted to talk about for a moment. Alabama and LSU played in basketball last night, and it was looked upon as probably one of the bigger SEC games of the year. And the reason being is because, Kentucky's 4-8, something like that. I mean, they're not very good. And Alabama's undefeated in SEC play. So the interesting thing about this, though, is that LSU and Alabama tangled last night, and with that, LSU loses by 30 at home to Alabama. So it's not exactly the matchup that everybody was thinking that it would be, okay? So they lose by 30. And here's the big thing. People were talking about, wow, man, this Alabama team has potential to be a Sweet 16, Elite 8 team. Alabama shot an SEC league record last night, 23 three-point shots, or they shot 43 total and made 23 of them, which puts them at about 53.5%. Okay, so let's round it up to say 54%. On the season, they shoot 35%. Okay, Clemson played them down a couple weeks ago, and Clemson beat them. And the reason Clemson beat them is because they held them to 3 of 22 shooting from three-point land. LSU ran a lot of zone last night, and they just shot them out of the zone, and LSU refused to come out of it. So with that, I give you this little bit of knowledge before we get out of here today. Big wins in January don't mean anything when it comes to hoops. Everything comes down to what you can do in late February, early March. I think everybody gets that. But when you have a team that shoots threes like that and they get hot, they can beat anybody. But on a consistent basis, they're not going to win every single game. So the thought of Alabama shooting themselves into the final, the Elite Eight, it's kind of comical. Now, I understand that a lot of the folks are, trying to hitch onto that wagon because they are 7-0 in conference play, and that's impressive. I'm not taking away anything Alabama's done, but this is an Alabama team that has 3 losses on the season. They lost to Stanford, Clemson, and Western Kentucky. So let's slow down for just a minute here and thinking, wow, this could be a Sweet 16 team, especially when you watch Alabama and the way that they play. They play fast and they shoot a lot of threes. You can have a night where that's not working. I still think defense is the way to go in college basketball. If you play good defense, you're going to win a lot of games. The idea of college basketball being what college football is now, I think is a little off. All right, and finally, the final thing today on the hoops front, Clemson will play tonight at Georgia Tech. And, games in games in January don't matter much. But after you get hammered, which is what happened to Clemson, they got hammered by Virginia over the weekend. I mean, it was a good thing if you're a Clemson fan that there weren't any seats in the arena, because if you paid to go to that game and you lose by that much and you're a ranked opponent, Oof. Now, the adage behind a lot of that is that, okay, it's a COVID-19 thing. They're a little flat. Okay, I can buy into that too. But you got to bounce back quickly. And this Georgia Tech program has the capability of beating up on Clemson. They're going to be at home tonight. Tip-off's at 7 o'clock. So this is kind of a bounce-back game that Clemson needs. They did do the Florida State sweep, or the state of Florida sweep, Sunshine State sweep, whatever it is, earlier in the season, where they went down and won at Miami and they won at Florida State. I tell you what, if you drop back-to-back games, and Virginia's a pretty good team, Georgia Tech is average. If you drop those two games in a row, the sweetness from that early part of the season goes away quick. So that's something that Clemson is going to have to look at tonight. Tip-off for that game is set for just after, right around 7 o'clock. So set your DVRs, I guess is the term to use there if you can't watch. How many people follow games on Twitter? I know I do. Sometimes when I've got the kids and everything going, I can't watch everything live. So I'll DVR it and follow it on Twitter and then go back and watch it later. But yeah, there's your matchup tonight that you got to look at. All right, we're taking your calls at 803-978-1832. A couple more minutes here in the rundown, right here on Fox Sports Radio 1400. One of the big stories today that came out is Phillip Rivers has decided to retire. J.J. Watt had a great statement about that. He said that he was talking to Watt and basically telling him in one play on the field, hey, your linebackers aren't lined up right. That's how he was telling Watt that, which is kind of funny. By the way, one other note too, two players when Nick Saban was at Alabama wanted to fight him. So, yeah. Dante Culpepper and Zach Thomas tried to beat him up in the locker room. Can you imagine? And, Nick Saban had to be thinking, man, I can't deal with all this. And we've had former Gamecock Corey Jenkins on, and he talked about how Saban's a good coach, but not necessarily at the pro level. He did not tell us about Dante Culpepper and Zach Thomas tried to beat up Nick Saban in the locker room. Oof. How did that go over? Zach Thomas, a big guy. Dante Culpepper was a 6'5" guy, too. I mean, Nick Saban's what, 5'3", 5'4". I don't want to take anything away from him. But when you look at that and you think about college coaches who are used to getting what they want out of their players, yeah, the NFL players are like, I'll just fight you in the locker room. How's that working out for you, coach? Notice we didn't get any of that. That would be a rat poison pill. Is that what he calls it? Yeah, Zach Thomas wanted to fight me, but you didn't know about it. Dante Culpepper wanted to beat me up in the locker room, but nobody knew about it. What a mess that had to be. All right, tomorrow on the program, we'll start looking ahead towards the NFL championship weekend picks. We'll have some of that. And whatever else happens, man, sometimes I'll put stuff together for a show, and then all of a sudden, we have two big things that come at us real quick. Will Muschamp going to Georgia? That was quick. And the whole thing with Deshaun Watson possibly being in the mix to go to the Carolina Panthers. All of that comes out really quick. I talk about people wanting to fight people. The next time I see Lawton Swan from Clemson Sports Talk, I'm going to fight him. Yep. He sits over there at Castle Day Swan. He doesn't come in and hang out with us anymore. That bald-headed fool will be on with you from 4 to 6 today. Listen to Clemson Sports Talk on the vast Clemson Sports Talk Radio Network. And tweet at him, Rob wants to fight you. Just so he knows. I'm going to fight him the next time I see him. That's going to happen. Anyway, check out Lawton Swan Show. Also, Teddy Hefner on in the morning. I'm not fighting with Teddy. Teddy may take me down. I'll fight the battles I can win. I'm not going to fight with Teddy. But Teddy's on in the morning from 9 to noon. Lawton Swan's on from 4 to 6. I'll be back at this tomorrow. Follow me on Twitter at Rob Sounds Good. Podcast will be up. Full stories on Deshaun Watson and Of course, the stuff with Will Muschamp, all of that on the blog page, foxsportsradio1400.com. Thank you guys for listening. Have a great rest of the day. Appreciate you guys over there, man. We'll talk to you tonight. New Rob and Kale show, 9:30, all right?